Well, again, good afternoon, good morning, or maybe even good evening for those of you in Indonesia and in Asia. My name is Jerome Kruft. I'll be the moderator of this CBI webinar about the EUDR and how youth is involved. And we will be looking at various aspects of that. First of all, we'll have a little introduction by Patrick Gauka. He is the coffee sector account manager for coffee at CBI. And we will then also go to a poll trying to hear about you and how it is going with your EUDR compliance. Then I will be presenting a study I did together with the CBI team on EUDR digital tools, all that software that's out there and how we've categorized it. After that, we'll look at the latest developments in the coffee sector and sustainability of the EUDR in Uganda by Koen Sneyers. And Koen is the CBI coffee traceability expert in Uganda. We'll go to a little bit of a question and answer. After that, we'll look at Agriterra's successful cases of youth in the EUDR presented by James Muhangi. And James is the cooperative advisor of Agriterra in Uganda. And we'll end the webinar with a panel discussion and questions and answers. You can write your questions in the chat in the question section on your control panel that you will see, and we will monitor those, and we will be able to pose your questions to the various panelists of this webinar. It will not be possible to have a conversation, but we do welcome you to fill out your questions. Please also, if you have audio problems, try your phone call option. We, like I said, cannot hear you. We won't be able to see you, unfortunately, but do ask the questions in your question tab. We will also do a poll later on. And now, without further ado, I would like to present to you Patrick. Again, he is the sector account manager coffee at CBI, and he will present a little bit more about CBI. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yes, good morning or good afternoon to everybody. My name is Patrick Gauka, and I'm at CBI responsible for the account coffee. And I can imagine that some of you might wonder, okay, what exactly is CBI? CBI, the Center for the Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries. We are a government agency funded by Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands. And what we do is we support, we coach local SME exporters to get ready to do business independently in the European market. So our focus is mostly on SME exporters, and we do not do that alone. Actually, we try to involve in our work local business supporting organizations, associations, etc. And together with them, we try to get a change and transformation of the sector into the right direction, so that you're ready for the future as a coffee sector. Next slide, please. So apart from our coaching and longer-term programs, we also offer market information. You can find that on our website, cbi.eu/market information. It's actually available for free, and it's quite valuable piece of information. You can select different topics, like of course coffee, but you can also select EUDR to give an example, and it's also quite accessible. It's mostly not voluminous, but in like 5-6 written in 5-6 pages. Again, this information, market information, can be found on our webpage, cbi.eu/market information, and give it a try, have a look at it, and it will be really valuable. It's updated also regularly. Next slide, please. So apart from our market information, we have, of course, a track record in coffee programs, recently and still running in Uganda at the moment, and recently completed Ethiopia and Rwanda and Guinea. And we are up to start with Indonesia. But of course, I should not forget, apart from the African continent, that we have done lots of work in the Central American continent as well, Central American countries in the coffee sector, as well as in South America. Yeah, this is a brief background of the CBI and what we do. I should like to give the word back to Jeroen.
Thank you, Patrick. And Patrick is speaking to us from World of Coffee in Switzerland. I hope you have a good trade fair there. I want to talk a little bit about the digital tools that CBI has created for you, SMEs, but also for BSOs or for individual farmers or even for government. It is something that you can find online on that same website that Patrick talked to you about, cbi.eu, or you can just Google it as CBI digital tools or CBI EUDR, and then you will see an article that talks about various tools. Now, what are we talking about here? Well, these digital tools, you will know that there are so many software companies now providing mapping services, traceability services, satellite imagery for services, risk mitigation services, and we've tried to categorize these different tools, and we've made a huge spreadsheet that is downloadable that will compare all of these digital tools for you. So the article actually consists of three main studies that you can download. One is the explanation of all of these various digital solutions and what they're for, their functions and the target groups. We have some case studies, and we have then, like I said, that big document, which is a long list. It's an Excel sheet where you can compare all these tools. We have categorized the tools according to target group. So if you're a farmer, you can go directly to that section and see what's relevant for you. What can you do to become EUDR compliant? Or if you're a farmer group, you can go there. We've also used the categories exporter, the business support organization, and government. This is an example of one of the corners of the EUDR file that you can download. And there we've categorized them in various sections of functionality. There are tools that you can use just for basic mapping. They sometimes are even free. You can use tools. There are tools that are professional mapping field. They actually analyze much more than just mapping. Then you have satellite-based environmental monitoring tools. You have farm sustainability and traceability tools, which is really something else again. And you also have the supply chain and risk management tools. And sometimes they overlap, but roughly we were able to identify these five categories. Just to look at it a little bit more, that is where we would have the basic field mapping tools. You would have your analysis tools, and we will give examples of all of these and compare them for all of their functions. The satellite-based tools, some examples of those, Satelligence, Live.EO, some of these may be familiar to you. Sustainability, traceability is something else. There you really want to see where the product comes from and where it goes to, and that you can track it all the way sometimes to the shop, where QR codes might give insight to consumers on what the supply chain looked like. This is really the future, and I really do suggest that you look into traceability tools as well beyond EUDR compliance. The supply chain and risk management tools go even further. There a company would say, well, what are my risks in general in terms of my labor or my land laws, child labor, for example, or maybe deforestation risks, and they would map all of that throughout the supply chain. So that's software that's specifically targeted toward that. So all of that you could see in this website. Again, looking at these various functionalities, the mapping of the farms, validating also that there's not deforestation, validating legality aspects such as your the national ID number or your land rights and your deeds of the land that farmers work on, demonstrating also the supply chain traceability. But the study also looks at some functionalities that go beyond EUDR compliance, which is sort of nice, I think. We also look at software that could monitor agricultural practices, so you could enter your training practices there, and then you could monitor, you could analyze over time if those trainings have resulted in a higher yield or a better quality of your coffee, etc. Financial services can also be added to these softwares, so you could find software that can find out how to pay farmers more easily or how to do saving and loans schemes. There is software available now where you could monitor the carbon capture, and that is another way of making money for farmers and co-ops. And there are also weather and price alerts through digital software. So all of this is being compared in this study, so please look at that. There's also some case studies. I almost forgot. We go into a Rwandan coffee farmer and somebody in Honduras who works with a co-op, and we work with a BSO officer in Cote d'Ivoire. These are fictional cases, but they're based on reality. A palm oil farmer in Indonesia, and there's more useful links as well. This is an example of one of those case studies, so please do check it out. This is the precise website, but again, like I said, you can simply Google it and you will find it. With that, I would like to now look, before we go to Koen, we'd like to do a little poll and to see how you're doing on your EUDR compliance. So we're going to start the poll now, and if you see the poll arriving on your screen, we would like to then ask you to fill out the questions of that poll. We'd like to know from all of you participants, and hopefully many have joined now. I see we have 26 participants. Please let us know. You can select one or more of the following. What is the status? Are you not interested in EUDR, or you don't need it? Or you think you don't need it, at least? How about, are you in the process of mapping your farms or already mapped your farms? Have you sent any GPS data to an importer who then enters it into the app? We're interested in how data is being used. Or do you actually work with your own software and do you enter data into that app? And the other option you could take is that you already even export coffee. You've already exported coffee through the Traces system with EUDR compliant information. So we'd love to hear from you. We're collecting responses with about 40% of you, almost half of you have now given an answer, which is great. We'll wait a little bit longer, and then we'd be very interested to see the results. Okay, it seems to be stuck at 38% voted. So we could then maybe, yes, some more people are coming in, great, 48%. Please participate in the poll if you can. What is your status of implementing EUDR? Not interested in the process, or you've mapped your farms already? Do you send data to your importer? Or do you work with your own EUDR app? Or maybe both? Have you already exported EUDR compliant coffee? That would be the fifth. All right, well, for time's sake, I think we should start wrapping up the poll. We have 57% of you voted, and so far we see that 17% is not interested in the EUDR compliance or do not need it. 50% is in process of mapping farms. Here we have the results. 33% is sending GPS data to importers who enter it into an app. And 25% work with their own EUDR software. 8% has already exported coffee with EUDR compliant information. This is great. Thanks very much for that information. That is very insightful for us, the CBI, to know. And of course, we hope that the study I just presented will help you find the right solution for you to get your coffee EUDR compliant. For those that are not interested in EUDR compliance because perhaps they sell to the United States, please do bear in mind that eventually other parts of the world may also need EUDR compliant coffee because they might want to trade with Europe, and then they will need to show EUDR compliance. So indirectly, other continents are also in need of the EUDR, is what we think. All right, thanks very much for that poll. We are now going to go to a keynote speaker of this webinar. His name is Koen Sneyers. He is from Belgium. He lives in Uganda and is a coffee traceability expert working now on the CBI program, a climate smart coffee program in Uganda. Welcome, Koen. Please start your presentation, which is about the Ugandan experience, I believe, correct?
Exactly, that's it. We're here to give you an update on what has been going on in Uganda. Very happy to connect with all of you. Before we dive in, first a word about myself. I had a chance to be working with a Ugandan family business exporting the first fully traceable and transparent coffees out of the country. Under that position, we developed even dedicated traceability software fully for coffee value chain actors, as well as an in-house sustainability standard. And indeed, currently we spent our dedication on implementing the Uganda Climate Smart Coffee Project. And as we'll see on the next slide, the program started last year and will run for a total of 5 years with a vision of achieving more traceable and climate smart coffee out of Uganda. For those of you who know the origin, these days Uganda is the largest exporter on the African continent, mostly Robusta coffees, of course. And we followed 3 major outcomes or pillars in order to achieve this vision. First of all, we as CBI support public and private service delivery to sector players, combination of those ideally. Secondly, the program offers capacity building to the SME exporters on how to achieve these traceable and climate smart coffees and get them into the EU. And thirdly, CBI also acts as a convener and a dialogue actor for the wider sector to achieve more harmonized and coordinated decision making amidst all the support organizations in the sector. Next slide, please. What has been ongoing in Uganda as far as preparations for the EU deforestation regulation? Well, initially things were moving pretty slow until the formation of a national task force happened, not just for EUDR, but also for the CSDD and the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. And mostly with the efforts of CAFE Africa, that has been establishing the coordination unit for the country. Things really got moving since last year, and that started with the formulation of a national action plan that was fully aligned with the ITC, International Trade Center, accompanying measures, which means they offer practical guidance to value chain actors on the tools to be used, thinking about policy making advisory at national level, but also lobby and advocacy between origins and import regions in the EU. Further, a huge awareness campaign took place through radio, television, flyers, in order to help the farmers out there to understand what EUDR is all about. Obviously, there have been countless private public platform dialogues to find a common understanding and a shared objective for EUDR solutions. And lastly, it's also important to share that actually all value chain actors have been placed into 3 categories. On one side, multinationals. Second one, the domestic exporters. And thirdly, the SMEs, those smaller exporters, they are represented in their own consortium. Later, we'll have our colleague James talk a bit more about those experiences. Specifically for Uganda is that the farmer or even the plot registration is organized in a centralized way. Much as most of the exporters and even cooperatives already invested some effort in collecting polygon or a single GPS data, it was decided for reasons of quality and reliability that the whole exercise would be executed by a single commercial provider called Pula. So far, 1.4 million farmers were registered. These polygons for these farmers are then verified again in terms of data integrity and quality by another provider called Meridia. That's a specialized company, and this all happened with funding of Agribusiness Initiative as well as government of Uganda. The intention is to now have these polygon data be stored in a temporary data warehouse so that exporters that have to declare the geo information to the importers in the EU can tap into that data warehouse and use unique identifiers to recognize and track specific and allocate these identifiers to the traceable batches in the supply chain upon export. So in the next slide, we'll see that there is simultaneously an important study ongoing on how such a data warehouse might look like, not just in the short term, but more importantly in the long term. And that's where a study team that is largely composed of specialists by IDH is currently looking into the aspects of governance, legality, the functionality, the technical design, and the financing models to make sure such a data warehouse will be sustained and add value in the long term. As we see into the graph on the left, we are, or the study is aware that in Uganda, most exporters, they already have and use traceability solutions along a section of their supply chain. However, typically there is a lot of duplication and these solutions don't connect with each other. Now, that's why with funding of IDH and Trademark Africa, recently the first pilot has been launched, as we see on the next slide, a pilot to see how a dedicated selection of traceability solutions can actually be used to become interoperable and connect with each other all the way from plot level up to export level. Now, what are some of the lessons learned out of these experiences here at national level in terms of becoming ready for EUDR? Well, first of all, it's not so much of a technical challenge. The technicalities can be solved by the IT companies, but it's mostly about capacity, making everyone, all the various sector stakeholders understand the concepts, but also the potential solutions. Because there is a need for sharing information, trust and confidence comes in. Not everyone is so happy to share supply chain information with government, but also with their own supply chain partners. And that's where sometimes, unfortunately, we get into all kinds of power plays. So we see that it took quite a while to build consensus on this front and to achieve collaboration mostly between private and public sector. And Café Africa did a great job on leading that coordination effort. Information sharing is very resource intensive. It took intensive efforts to make sure that the most rural and remote smallholders could fully understand and leave their preconceived ideas and misinformations behind to get a buy-in into this shared ambition for the sector. But also the various deadlines which come up and then suddenly are postponed, they of course led to a situation of rushing and then stalling, with currently a bit less pressure than at the end of 2024, of course. And we hope that things keep on moving, especially because much of these efforts, such like the plot mapping, is actually a never-ending exercise. Much as it was funded centralized for the first round, these efforts will have to be repeated regularly to accommodate changes in land ownership, renting and hiring of plots, or inheritance cases. Lastly, currently in Uganda, there is quite some urge by the private sector, also on the party of Pula that collects the polygon data, to achieve access through a temporary data warehouse for the already registered polygon data, because, well, by August, the shipments that will likely reach Europe by end of year are supposed or expected to be already EUDR compliant. So there is only 2 months more or less remaining to access this information and disclose the required data to the EU operators. As CBI now, the program started last year, and we initiated immediately an assessment to all the SMEs in the coffee space. So out of the 140 something in Uganda, 37 of them participated in a survey to indicate how their current readiness is towards EUDR. We saw there that less than half had segregated supply chains. In most cases, this was linked to sustainability standards like rainforest or 4C, but it also means that the majority of them didn't have experience even on how to handle physical segregation along the chain. Only 10 of the respondents actually were using traceability software. Keep in mind, this survey took place end of last year. We expect that things would have improved a bit over the latest months. Now, interestingly, for those ones that already use traceability software, they didn't always choose it themselves. Often it was a donor, an NGO, or a buyer that pushed a certain solution to them, which could be a concern. But further, in terms of specific challenges to traceability, the most common challenges cited were lack of IT devices and network coverage. That was less than that was not expected, and it looks like that the willingness and openness by both farmers and intermediaries or agents, they were considered less of a challenge than actually these hardware and infrastructure issues. Further, they did declare that most of them already accessed support, whether through training on particular software or with the plot registration from various support organizations. And on the next slide, we can further see how they felt in terms of awareness and readiness. Yes, of course, by end of last year, almost all of them had heard about what EUDR is about. That being said, only 6 of the 30 respondents here, they had already run their own deforestation risk assessments for the specific polygons or single points collected. And in terms of readiness, at the lower bar chart, we will see that, yes, well, most of them are very much or much informed about EUDR. The preparedness levels are running quite behind, with 20% not prepared at all, and another 20% feeling slightly unprepared. So 4 out of 10 roughly of the sector was not really ready to start implementing. If we summarize all of that for the Ugandan setting, and in the understanding that Uganda is largely only partially regulated in terms of a coffee export, well, it's also important to understand that SMEs take up only a very moderate portion of those coffee volumes. It's mostly the multinationals that are exporting. And there is a huge duplication of efforts that over the last year occurred in terms of registering farmers and their coffee plots. More often, the data that comes out is then saved and stored in silos, which is not an efficient situation in the long term. For SMEs specifically, many of them have typically shorter supply chains, especially when there is centralized processing through washing stations or even dry processing, and that has somehow eased the effort of mapping the supply chain and engaging with the smallholders. Often, certification already helped them to gain experience and comply with some of the chain of custody, but also legality and deforestation requirements of the legislation. We see that quite a bunch of these SMEs actually were able to be traceable and declare physical segregation by just using paper trails, using carbon copy payment vouchers and receipts, in addition to some simple Excel-based spreadsheets. And in our view, that can be sufficient, and there is nothing wrong with that. However, when supply chains get more complex and longer, there is really an opportunity to use dedicated traceability software, such as Jeroen was showing earlier in the CBI study. It is especially that digitalization step that seems to be a critical hurdle for many of the SMEs that are not yet that professionalized yet. Now back to the CBI Uganda program. How is the program expecting now to support these SMEs? Well, first of all, by conducting capacity assessments per SME specifically to understand where they are and coming up with tailored recommendations on how to achieve traceability and compliance. The program follows a hybrid approach. On one side, it hopes to engage as much as possible private and public service providers through a systems approach, therefore preventing dependency on the CBI experts. But at the same time, we do see that there might still be need for some individual direct coaching for these SME exporters. CBI will also convene SMEs to share best practices together pre-competitively in order to let them learn from their peers. CBI is moderating discussions also with the buyers in Europe to help the shared understanding on what they expect and what is feasible given the setting and context of Uganda. And lastly, we are exploring opportunities to engage youth through service provision models on various tasks in support, such as the polygon mapping, such as conducting compliance checks, and also in combination with labor and advisory services to smallholder farmers. That's how the program foresees to continue over the coming 4 years. And I believe I've reached the end of the presentation. Thank you very much, and questions are welcome later.
Thank you, Koen. That was indeed very interesting to learn about the progress made in Uganda under the CBI program, and also interesting to hear about the high level of centralized data keeping. Some efficiencies that still can be improved on. There are some questions now, maybe for you, because we have from Vietnam this day Stefan Woning or Wooning. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name correctly, but thank you for your questions. And basically what he's asking, Koen, and maybe you can respond to this. He says, oh, there's so many rules regarding EUDR to export coffee. He's actually also working with cacao towards Europe. Is it not much better to focus on Australia, China, Dubai, other regions? What would you say to those people?
Yeah, that's a concern we hear more often, of course. By all means, any producer, trader, origin is welcome to explore alternative markets for their produce. Only we want you to keep in mind that sustainability is a trend that is not only happening in Europe. And some of the markets you're referring to at their own pace might also gradually impose particular barriers from a sustainability perspective, which in the end will mean you will still have to comply with some of them, right? That being said, yeah, it's good to keep some options open and maybe spread your risks to gradually figure out where you have the highest return on your investments.
Stefan also says that they have a lot of Robusta coffee in Vietnam. Of course, we know that. I think Uganda also has a lot of Robusta. So maybe you can answer this question as well, Koen. Is there a market in Europe for Robusta? Could you talk a little bit about the market demand aspect of Robusta versus Arabica in Europe?
Well, interestingly, in Europe, the vast majority of the volumes are still Robustas, more than Arabicas, and that is also somehow geographically defined and what the flavor pattern of the consumers look like. We see that the preference for more finer Arabicas, which are processed in very particular ways, is still now, I cannot say a niche, but it is still vastly below the general bulk Robusta volumes that are asked for. And of course, it is also linked to a generational preference in the population. Younger people might much more appreciate transparency in the supply chain, delicate flavors, which often are linked to the Arabica chain, just because they depended on more control and centralized processing to achieve those qualities. And that's how often sustainability seems to be somehow correlated, even with at least some of the Arabica chains.
Okay, thank you about that. Thank you for that, Koen. Indeed, Stefan mentions he also has organic coffee. I'd like to just say and add to what you just said, Koen, that for you, Stefan, probably as you have organic certification, EUDR compliance may be easier for you because, as Koen also mentioned, you have a lot of documentation already done regarding environmental and also chain of custody kind of information that can be used for the traceability. So I would say don't give up. Don't give up on Europe, and try to maybe at least get your organic coffee EUDR compliant. There is an increasing demand for organic coffee in Europe, and probably much more so than in Dubai. I don't know about Australia. I guess Australia could be interested in organic. It's a little much less in China, but I think that Europe would be a good market for your organic coffee. There's another question, and I would like to ask that to Patrick. Patrick, if you could turn on your camera, because Samuel Tuo, I think he is from Kenya, because he asks, and maybe you can answer that question. Do you have any initiatives, CBI, in Kenya?
Well, we never started actually something in the coffee sector in Kenya, since the tea sector is much bigger, and we did a tea program a couple of years ago, quite successfully, the move from standardized tea to specialty teas. However, we are aware that we never did something in coffee, and we are thinking about further research as a preparation to see if that is a wise program for Kenya.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that. We would like to now ask if you have any more questions. We do have some time for more questions, and if we don't see any more questions, then we would like to start the next presentation, and for that we will have another keynote speaker, and that keynote speaker will be James Muhangi from Uganda, but also in Switzerland. And James will be talking to us about involvement regarding EUDR coffee sector.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeroen, and I'm James Muhangi. I'm a senior cooperative advisor working with Agriterra, and Agriterra, of course, works with the farmer organizations and cooperatives in Uganda and elsewhere in Africa and Asia. And for this particular engagement, we just demonstrate what is happening in regards to EUDR and youth involvement within the coffee sector in Uganda. Next slide. Of course, I cannot talk about youth without showing what youth are able to do. These are some of the youth that we have supported as Agriterra to build capacity as plant doctors who go outside to train farmers of advisory and do a lot of things involving also EUDR. But the structure of the report that I'm going to talk about is just outlined there. Next slide. Yeah, so we were able to work with 4 cooperatives, and 2 of them are EUDR compliant, and they are main exporters to mostly 99% of their coffee to Europe. The other 2 are partially EUDR compliant, one at 20% and the other at 50%, and mostly sell to other cooperatives. And we found out how they understand the EUDR as the new regulation that requires supply chain actors to provide the source of their products, whereas demonstrating the geo coordinates or polygons for acreages above 4 hectares to have a
James, your audio is falling away. If you can hear me, maybe you can use Patrick's microphone, who is sitting next to you.
Next slide. Okay. Yeah, of course. We talk to cooperatives, and there are a few challenges that are still faced by farmer organizations and cooperatives regarding the EUDR compliance, and one of them is data validation and verification. Currently, at the cooperative level, at farm organization level, they have no robust mechanism to actually verify if this data is EUDR compliant, even when it is collected. Then there is also increased operational costs, mostly the cost of profiling if the organization is going to do it on their own. And the cooperatives mentioned it to be about $3 to $3.5 per farmer, per farm. So it means if a farmer has 3 to 4 parcels, that is times 3 or 4. That becomes a high cost of profiling. Data accuracy and traceability. Of course, we have different terrains, and this is what my colleague also showed. There has been a lot of overlapping polygons from the data that has been collected, where you find some geopositions are superimposed onto others. And again, even when in Uganda we are carrying out a sector-wide, national-wide approach of registration of farmers, some farmers are not aware of what is happening, and there is some resistance to collect data from the farmers because they believe or they think maybe government is doing it to tax them, and they tend not to show all their coffee gardens. If a farmer has 3 coffee parcels, they will show you one, thinking the next one is going to be taxed. That's one of the challenges. The administrative cost is also up high because you have to do a lot of awareness as a farmer organization, and you also have to make sure that you collect the data in addition to that. Next slide. But previously, of course, as Agriterra, through our youth council approach within cooperatives, we've been building capacities of youth to take part in the activities that are being done by the cooperative, so as to involve them and as they become the next generation of farmers. And one of the roles, or most of the roles they do, is they do aggregation of coffee produce. They offer farmer advisory, you can see in the picture, to the farmers. They distribute inputs to the farmers and offer the after-sales services on how to use the inputs. Most of them get financing to buy motorbikes and then transport the coffee as a produce from the farmer to the processing facilities. And recently with EUDR, we saw a lot of youth being recruited by different farmer organizations to do data collection, simply because they are able to use smartphones. They have some basic knowledge on how to use the GPS and be able to profile a farmer. But it's good to note that within the data warehousing and the due diligence statement, we have not yet seen youth involved here, and it is something that can be explored going forward. Currently, what the youth are actually doing within the EUDR framework, they mobilize and train farmers on EUDR compliance. They take part in collection of polygons and geopositions. They also help in traceability. With the youth, they can manage to trace even the location of the farmer. They can visit the farmer and see and be able to see what the farmer is doing and how many parcels they have. They can run up and down. A few of them who have received training, they are able to use different verification platforms, like one of the cooperatives we visited, which is using Meridia Verify. They are able to verify their data and know that it aligns with the EUDR regulations. And even another cooperative that is using one of the application SIMOS, they were able to generate a due diligence statement for us. And these are youth that are doing this work. Next slide. We've been able to learn that data collection aids farmer mobilization. It is easier to know where your farmer is located, and you can contact him because you are able to trace. Traceability has also become easier, and organizations are improving their operations. It is easier to know how much a farmer has. For instance, if you collect all polygons of the coffee gardens of the farmer, then you can be able to estimate the yield. You can be able to estimate the productivity, and you know what you're even able to put to the market. So operation has improved. There is creation of job opportunities for the youth who are mostly doing data collection, verification, and this is something that is new in addition to what they have previously been doing. We have also learned, like one of the colleagues asked in the webinar, that there is a need to diversify coffee market. They can actually do it. And there is also need for a robust traceability system, which through the ABI supported program we are trying to build, and hopefully the youth will be running some part of that. We have also learned that traceability is not just about ticking the box. The next slide. It's not about ticking the box, but to make sure that we start with clean, verifiable, and consistent farm level data, and then we can rethink on how we can collect, store, and manage farmer records and harvest. And this one, most importantly, informs sustainability. Market access is also becoming conditional, as sometimes access to premiums export markets will depend on sustainability, making EUDR compliance not optional, but a baseline for actually doing business. Next slide. Yeah, these are some of the cooperatives that we visited. We have our farmers cooperative in Tungamo district, Rubanga Cooperative Society, Bukonzo Organic, and the Busheshe Coffee Processors Cooperative. Two of them are exporters and they are ready, and the other two are partially ready as they involve youth doing some of their activities. Thank you very much. That's what I have to say. And back to you, Jeroen.
Thank you, James. So indeed, now there is some time for more questions and answers and a panel discussion amongst ourselves, but we'd really like to get to hear from you and see what you want to talk about, what you want to ask about. So by the way, we have Samuel from Kenya. He is reporting that they work in, they finished mapping 6,000 farms with 3 cooperatives in Bungoma, and they used 56 enumerators. So it's that would be also my question. That is sort of right, James, a cost factor, right? To be using these enumerators that go around and mapping farms. This is a challenge. Does this look like what's happening in Uganda as well? When you are dealing with thousands of farmers, 6,000 farmers, you will need more than 50 enumerators?
Yes, thank you very much, Jeroen, and my colleague from Kenya. Yes, when profiling this data, you will need more enumerators to do the job, and it's actually not even about the numbers, but how trained they are to make sure that they collect complete and clean data. That's most important. So capacity building first is needed to make sure that even when the enumerators go to the field, they are able to pick data that will not require a lot of re-editing and a lot of work for it to be EUDR compliant.
And so in Uganda, this may be a question for Koen or for you, James, and you might want to switch on your cameras, which would be nice for the audience to see when you respond. A question for me as a participant also here in this webinar is in Uganda, when you have your farms mapped, then you still need to register the purchases of the farmers, and you have to trace the purchases from the farm to the collection station, and there it will maybe go to another aggregator. How is that whole movement of the coffee traced? How is that done? Maybe Koen, you could respond to that. Is that still being done on paper and Excel, like you mentioned, or or are there already apps that are actually quite practical in your experience? And maybe you could even recommend some of the digital solutions for that, like which ones work well that you've seen.
Yeah, lots is happening, of course, and keep in mind responsibility for EUDR is with the private sector, first of all, not necessarily with the public sector. However, because there is so much duplication, because there is a lot of uncertainty, it makes sense to involve a public sector, give them a role, and try to find solutions that can be of a pre-competitive nature, such as, for example, sharing the burden of the polygon data information and accessing a single and confirmed plot registry that is then hosted somewhere under a public-private structure. That was the future. Would be much more efficient than what we have currently, whereby every exporter registers farmers and plots. Lots of duplication. A single farmer is in 4, 5, 6 different data sets, and that's just not efficient in the long term. Now, most of the question in regards to what is already happening on traceability depends on the segment in the sector. Multinationals that make up the largest portion, they have about a quarter of their volumes traceable. The rest is still indirect, whereby at best the hulling station, where the dry pots are held, would be known. For the sake of the SMEs, many of the cooperatives, there is, from what we see, more traceability already, but also often because these are certified supply chains. On the topic of traceability solutions specifically, indeed, like the CBI study showed, there are a whole bunch of providers out there. There is a lot of unclarity, and indeed, I think many practitioners would benefit from some guidance to make a well-informed decision on which one is most suitable to their specific use case, considering preferences and structural characteristics of their supply chains and end users. And this is ideally an exercise that would be updated regularly, because things really develop fast in the field of agri-tech solutions currently. Maybe James can complement.
And Koen, how do you do payments in Uganda?
Payments for the
purchase of cherries at the farm level. Stefan from Vietnam is interested in knowing how payment is being organized in Uganda.
Yeah, it would be. I think we need to look at case by case, but the vast majority is still a cash game, of course, buying coffee, right? The one who has cash and can pay on the spot, that one is more likely to get a coffee out. There are some digital payments happening, often pilot basis, project basis. Here and there, you see it being integrated into the operations. It's definitely possible, but my feeling is it's still the minor modality of payments to use the digital payment systems, such as the MTN mobile money or M-Pesa, what is the Kenyan analogy. James, how is that in the Southwest? James, are you able to complement?
James dropped out. In the meantime, then I have another question from Peter Mujuni.
Yes.
He says, as a traceability provider, he is from Asigma Simos, there is still a lack of an objective verifier.
What actually has been happening is that, thank you, Koen. One is that on the part of payments to farmers is done by cash predominantly. And then a few farmers accept bank payments. Most of these large-scale farmers who accept bank payments, and others accept mobile money payments. Those are the three methods through which farmers' coffee is being paid for. Whereas when I go back to compliment on what Koen just mentioned, in Uganda, we were able to actually understand that EUDR compliance is a 4-stage process that starts with data collection. Then you go to traceability, you go to data warehousing, and then traceability and the due diligence statement generation. So most cooperatives and farm organizations, including also some big export companies, they already collected data, whereas their efforts that government and ABI funded program, they have also supported registration of 1.4 million farmers data collection. So when you have this data, you can keep it within your traceability system, and farmers and farmer cooperatives and organizations chose two traceability systems, and one of them is FarmerLink, and the other one is called CYMOS by Asigma, FarmerLink by Exolink. And these two have been successful at tracing coffee from the farmer. So whichever farmer was actually registered, either by Pula or is registered and internally the data is kept by an institution, you can, when the farmer presents their registration number, card number, and you enter into the system of CYMOS or FarmerLink, the data of the farmer is able to be availed because there is an interoperability system that allows you to access the farmer's profile, including the polygons and geopositions, so that you are able to apportion how much coffee the farmer has delivered to a different buyer. In this way, the EUDR compliance in Uganda is farmer-centric. It means that the farmer is given opportunities to sell their coffee to whoever they feel like and whoever comes with the best price. Because as long as they are registered, they just have to show the card number, and then you enter into the traceability system, and the data of that farmer will actually surface in your purchasing platform, and then you can do the batching, and you are able to generate a due diligence statement. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, James. In fact, there is somebody from Asigma CYMOS here in our audience. It is Peter Mujuni. I already started to talk about his comment when you dropped out a minute ago. Let me read his comments, and thank you for weighing in here, Peter. As a traceability service provider, he says, there's still a lack of an objective verifier for quality of tools or services that can give more confidence or validation in terms of supporting SMEs. So he says that linkages to such as authorities, bodies, or exporters would help to improve our service delivery. And he's looking forward to these kinds of introductions. Do you recognize that, either Koen or James, what Peter says?
Yes, I actually recognize that, and we've been in touch with Asigma, with the CYMOS app, where we've been working with we are actually even introducing more cooperatives to using the platform, and it's one of the things that came out strongly, and we are trying to see how we can avail users of these platforms for capacity building, which is very key, as he mentions.
Do you see, Koen or James, and this is because this is a webinar also about youth involvement, do you see more youth engaged in these kinds of digital apps, these digital solutions?
Yes, exactly. And in one of the rooms that I happened to be part of during the EUDR compliance meeting, when we took out the % of the participants were youth, and these were mostly involved into data collection and farmer mapping.
Okay, all right. There are some more questions here from the participants. This is a participant in Ethiopia, Bukia Getu. She is, or he is, from Ethiopia. What is the CBI activities currently in Ethiopia on EUDR, and how to get further training on georeferencing and document preparation? Well, I know that from that Patrick once ran a project in Ethiopia from CBI, but that was a long time ago. So currently CBI is not active in Ethiopia. But remember, Mr. or Mrs. Getu, there is a lot of information on the CBI website. And also, if you have any questions on tools or georeferencing, you can always write also, and possibly an expert from CBI can give you an answer or direct you to one of the experts working with CBI, and that you would those questions you would direct to agriculture@cbi.eu. Right away, you can here also see the contact data of the speakers today. So if you have any questions, you could certainly contact us. Now then, we have another comment or question from Peter. He says that is the person from a Sigma. There is a room to partner with large SMEs exporters to offer traceability support to rigorously test our solutions while benefiting all supply chain actors anchored to the main or large exporters or SMEs. Our current offering allows for multi-modular use of profiling, inventory management, and as a recommendation, digital payments. All right. Well, thank you for promoting your company there, Peter. It's always good to know. There's a question from Janice Saavedra. Not sure where Janice is from, but the question is, who pays these technology right now? Do NGOs pay for that, or CBI, or the government? How does the management of technology, how would that management be sustainable? Good question. What are the payments ideas? Koen, can you report that? Does CBI pay for this perhaps?
You're looking at me now, but my wallet might not be able to cover all of that. No, of course, this again is a private sector responsibility, remember. And much as private sector invests in its own IT infrastructure, laptops, smartphones, maybe motorbikes, and you pay for subscriptions to use, say, a Windows software, it is expected that also towards the future, value chain actors will have to budget for a subscription to indeed use dedicated software to showcase what the traceability and the origin of their produce is, so that information can be collected and retained along the traceable volumes. Now, ideally, of course, we all hope that over time, the international coffee markets will be able to differentiate pricing in function of compliance. And just like we saw the end of last year appearing right before the deadline, we saw that the differentials on the international market no longer only referred to particular certifications or country origins, but also towards EUDR compliance. And we hope that that will allow exporters to sell their traceable EUDR compliant coffees at a slightly better price than the non-compliant ones. It is to be seen how long that situation will sustain itself. There are some suggestions that it might balance out over time soon enough as other offerings become more common practice and there is more supply. But that's something I think everyone needs to plan for. Within the Ugandan setting specifically, and referring to the pilot that has been organized between Sigma Simons and PharmaLink, ExoLink, interoperable with the Cocoa Data Warehouse. Currently, the study is still ongoing, like Emily mentioned, but the price range for participating in these national traceability efforts is set to be in the range of between 3 cents and 9 cents per bag exported. So not per pound, per bag exported. These are the best estimations we have heard so far as the Ugandan national solution that will be established in the near future.
Are you talking about these 3 or 5 cents or 3 to 9 cents? That's the premium you were talking about, or is that the cost?
Yeah, to rectify that, this will be the cost to achieve traceability along the supply chain using these nationally vetted traceability solutions.
So that's actually quite feasible. It doesn't sound like too much. How about the premiums? How much cents per pound? If we have a 30, 40 cent per pound organic premium, what can we expect nowadays if we offer EUDR compliant coffee in the marketplace, Koen?
Yeah, people are talking about that a lot, and all kind of numbers flying past there. Nothing has been agreed yet formally, and it's of course going to be often supply and demand question that will define these premiums. The numbers we hear on the Robustas are as low as $15 to $20 per ton, but might, maybe with a lot of wishful thinking, go up as high as current RA certification premiums. So there is quite some conversation or exploration ongoing, but I don't think we'll give a definite number to you today.
Have you seen any, this is a question from myself, have you seen any importers from Europe having to cancel contracts because farmer groups were simply not ready yet to send EUDR compliant coffee?
I cannot answer that question. I would like to pass it on to someone else.
James, have you heard of that? Have you heard of any problems occurring that exporters are losing clients in Europe because of this new regulation?
There is currently there is no, I have not heard of a situation, but I can say that there is some resentment for buyers or importers to offer contracts if they know that the organization is not having any data related to EUDR compliance. But for cancellation, it has not been the case, only that there is resentment in issuing new contracts for an organization that is not EUDR compliant.
There's concern, right? I mean, because technically it's not needed yet until the 1st of January next year, but like Koen said, just about these few months coming, EUDR compliance has to be there for people to import after the European summer months, because then they'll be selling that to roasters, and come next year, that'll have to have your EUDR compliance. So I guess there is some concern, and we may see some price hikes for EUDR compliance. That may be a motivation for some of the participants here to still work on this. Well, you know each other already, I think, in Uganda, but Peter does say of Asigma that, referring to your point of duplication efforts, Koen, he says, is there an opportunity, or asks, is there an opportunity to pilot some of your joint propositions to test the recommended traceability approaches and practices? He would like to hear your suggestions. So maybe you could talk to Asigma about that to work more jointly. That is the proposition by Peter. And for that, I think we're almost out of questions. Let's see if some more questions have come in. There is a note of gratitude from Florence to James. Thank you for the presentation. You talk of a platform where you are able to verify the farmer information. Kindly share details again on who has access rights to this platform. Is it publicly available? And she apologizes since she joined halfway if you already shared that information, but could you maybe talk about that again? Who has access to this farmer information platform? I believe it's all exporters, right? Is it publicly available even? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And this platform is a paid for platform from different service providers where you can verify your data. And currently, what most of the cooperatives that I talked to were using the platform by Meridia Verify. And also, it is the same platform that has always been used by the data, the 1.4 million data collected by PURA under ABI support and government. So it's a paid for service, and you can have a contract with them, and they will do it for you. And there you are sure that your data complies with the EUDR. Yeah.
Thank you, James, and thanks for the question, Florence. That is Florence Nagawa. Not sure from where, but thank you for that that question. Perhaps a last question before we wrap up. It would be, in general, either Koen or James, or even Patrick could answer this. What would CBI recommend service providers to do better? To better the service, to improve, I guess. What would CBI recommend service providers to do to improve the service provision to the different tiered value chain actors? What can service providers do better?
I would say start at the end of the chain or the beginning, depends on how you look at it. So start with the buyers, and then look back into the chain. What should be organized? So focus as a service provider on the needs of the importers, the buyers, and then go with that knowledge to the suppliers.
Thank you, Patrick. Indeed, yeah, make it a market-based approach. Ask what the importers want. That's first and foremost important, of course. James, Koen, any suggestions where there could be any further improvements for service providers of EUDR compliant software?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I believe the service providers, those that have already piloted with the existing farm organizations, they need to quickly always adapt to what the farm organizations and the off-takers require in the data sets that they're actually collecting or helping with the traceability. So incorporation of what is required by the producers, the suppliers, and also the importers is very important and key in trying to see how the service providers improve traceability.
Part of the sustainability is not just the traceability aspects that we've been talking about a lot. It's also providing good agricultural, possibly organic inputs to improve soil health. I was intrigued by the picture I saw in your presentation, James, of the youth that had in the kiosk on the table some leaf enhancers or organic fertilizers. Could you talk a little bit more about what is happening in Uganda, how youth is involved in organic compost making and selling of bioliquids for farmers or farmer organizations?
Yeah, so as Agriterra, we build the capacities of the youth in the cooperatives in regard to biosolutions, that's making of organic fertilizers from organically available materials. So they are able to make the liquid fertilizers, they make the solid organic manures, as well as biopesticides. And we develop a pricing strategy for these and support the youth to have it as a business model, as an income to their youth council, youth group in the cooperative. So they sell this input to the farmer, but also advise the farmer on how to use it. And most, we have seen it take shape amongst the organic certified producers who actually still need inputs, but which must be organic. That's what we are doing with the youth in Uganda.
That's great. And in fact, Patrick and I collaborated in the Rwandan project. Perhaps there are even some Rwandan alumni in our audience today, where we also organized the production of organic compost and bioliquids by young women. There were young women groups of a sustainable grower, and that was quite successful. They have been trained by experts, and then that was replicated at different levels of the cooperative. You can actually find these videos online if you Google CBI organic composting or organic coffee Rwanda. You can find these videos. We also have on the, in fact, on our CBI website, there is information on how to make the various products, organic products. I'm not sure if you can see my screen now. I don't think so. It's becoming a little bit difficult for me to monitor which screen now is being shown. Okay. If you do see this screen of the CBI website, then you can go to the market intelligence page that Patrick told you about and scroll down, market information. In this case, we did English language videos on compost making in Sierra Leone and Liberia, and that is in the cocoa section. So you go to cocoa, and then here it is how to make organic fertilizers. You can also just Google it and you'll find it. And here you have, in fact, a link to a YouTube playlist which has a number of videos on how to make solid and also liquid fertilizers. These are the liquid ones in Sierra Leone. That's an English language video series, very short, that you could even bounce from phone to phone through Bluetooth in the field. No need for internet, and they're short. This is the entire video, so please do look at that as well. Another resource on the CBI website dealing with sustainability and involving youth. I would like to invite Patrick to say some final words maybe on CBI and sustainability and the involvement of youth before we close up this seminar.
Yeah, well, actually, I would like to say I'm here at the moment with James in Geneva at the World of Coffee. So just talk to me if you want to meet me this afternoon. We're going straight, I think, to the exhibition halls right now. And again, EUDR is of course a relevant subject, and we were quite curious about what youth could do, what kind of role youth could play. But you could also think about gender, of course. What can we do with women on this subject? So maybe that's a subject for next year. I would like to thank you for your time and being present in this webinar. And yeah, don't hesitate to contact us in case of any questions or remarks. And please have a nice day. And I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick. And thank you indeed also keynote speakers, James Muhangi and Koen Sneyers from Uganda. Well, James, you're in Switzerland, so have a great fair. You too, Patrick. And everybody in the webinar, the audience, thank you for participating. Keep in touch, and we'll see you some other time, either at a trade fair, in a CBI program, or online. Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.